Good morning, students. In the previous interaction, we have studied the esophageal atresia, the foreign bodies in esophagus, and esophageal perforation. Now, in this interaction, we'll go with the gastroesophageal reflux disease. Now, our discussion plan would be like this. Today's interaction will go through the GORD etiology, that is gastroesophageal reflux disease etiology, the clinical features, the diagnosis, the complications of GORD, medical management of uncomplicated GORD. Today, we will cover these subheadings in this gastroesophageal reflux disease. Now, in upcoming next interaction, then we'll go through individual complication details, including Barrett's esophagus, again one of the important topic, as well as surgical management of GORD in detail in the next interaction. Now, as far as the gastroesophageal reflux disease is concerned, as you all know that the normal competency at gastroesophageal junction is maintained by lower esophageal sphincter, and its physiological function also has a very important role in the development of gastroesophageal reflux disease. Any abnormality in physiological function, and sometimes its anatomical location, especially related to diaphragm and esophageal hiatus, these two things are going to affect the development of GORD. Normally what happens is there is transient relaxation of lower esophageal sphincter. And why it is occurring? It may occur as a part of swallowing process, coordination with the other things. Sometimes if a person due to any reason wants to vomit, then it can relax and it allows the vomiting to occur. And sometimes due to excessive stretching of gastric fundus, especially after a meal, it relaxes to allow the swallowed air to be vented. Now, in this disease or condition, we are having two types of reflux. One is physiological and another one is pathological reflux. Now, this physiological reflux, most of the episodes of this physiological reflux, they occur especially during transient lower esophageal sphincter relaxations. In short, they are known as TLOSRs. Whereas in early stages of GORD, due to an increased number of TLOSRs, this pathological reflux can occur in a mild form. Here, the fall in overall sphincter pressure that is persisting may not be a cause in mild variety, the early stages of GORD. The important thing is repeated TLOSRs. They are occurring. early stages. Whereas in more severe GORD, there is low lower esophageal sphincter pressure. This pressure is more important in more severe GORD. In early stages, increased number of transient relaxation of lower esophageal sphincter. That was important. Now this loss of sphincter in more severe GORD, the loss of sphincter function seems to be made worse if it is associated with loss of the intra-abdominal esophageal length. If adequate length is not there, this becomes more severe. Now, this absent intra-abdominal length of esophagus, as we have already discussed in the anatomy part, the portion of the esophagus lying in the peritoneal cavity or abdominal cavity, if that is absent or very short, it may lead to a sliding hiatus hernia. In subsequent interaction, we'll go through the sliding, rolling, different types of hiatus hernia. Now in this condition, if there is no intra-abdominal length of esophagus, that is not there, the normal condensation of peritoneal fascia over the lower esophagus is weak, and this fascia is also known as phrenoesophageal ligament. That is weak, and if that is weak, the crural opening widens and it allows the upper stomach to slide up through the hiatus. Again, it aggravates the GORD. Sometimes the loss of normal anatomy, what we have discussed, if that is not there, some abnormality is there, it may increase the reflux. We are discussing the various factors responsible for GORD. But most of the cases, this only the sliding hiatus hernia presence is not the sole cause of this reflex. But if it is associated with GORD, this hiatus hernia, the GORD becomes more severe. Please remember one thing, as long as the lower esophageal sphincter that is functional and it remains competent, the pathological GORD does not occur. Most of the time, it could be a physiological GORD. Many GORD patients, they do not have any esophageal hiatal hernia, and many of the hernia patient, the esophageal hernia, the hiatal hernia patient, that is, they are not complaining or they are not suggestive of giving features of GORD. But instead of sliding hiatus hernia, if there is rolling type or paraesophageal hiatal hernia is there along with GORD, it is very difficult to manage and it should be managed as early as possible. We are discussing the various type of presentation of GORD, the patients. Sometimes these patients may have a rolling hernia with symptomatic GORD, or the primary presentation could be of GORD, and on further investigation we find a mixed hernia with sliding and rolling components. Both are there in different group of patients. Now, reflux esophagitis, one of the complications of this gastroesophageal reflux disease, it is usually seen in almost 40% of the patients attending any tertiary care hospital, and we can easily see the features of reflux esophagitis through the upper GI endoscopy. I think you all remember one of the important investigation in esophageal diseases is endoscopy. This GORD, it is the most common condition that affects the upper GI tract, especially in Western countries. And please remember the second point, that there is strong association between, we have seen, there is strong association between GORD, obesity, and the rise in incidence of adenocarcinoma of esophagus in this group of patients. Now let's go through the clinical features of these patients. The gastroesophageal reflux disease, these patients usually present with a classical triad of symptoms. Not sometimes not all of them, all three could not be there simultaneously, but the classical triad can be defined as the presence of retrosternal burning pain, also known as heartburn, the epigastric pain radiating to back sometimes, and regurgitation. These three things are important. RER, retrosternal burning pain, epigastric pain, and regurgitation. This is a classical triad of the gastroesophageal reflux disease. Now, this triad, the most patients do not experience all three at a time, and the symptoms of GORD is usually increased by the food, and especially what type of food? The food that delay the gastric emptying. And you all know that gastric emptying time is around 3 hours, and if the gastric emptying is being delayed by the food like fats, the food rich in fats, the spicy food, they can provoke the GORD features. Sometimes as the GORD progresses, becomes more severe, the gastric juice may reflux to the mouth, leading to a bitter taste. These are the factors we are discussing that is going to increase the clinical symptoms of GORD. On stooping or exercise, the heartburn and regurgitation, it appears in GORD. If the patient is suffering from GORD, clinically, we may get odynophagia features, especially with hot beverages, citrus drinks, or alcohol. The patients with nocturnal reflux and who reflux food to the mouth, the patients who reflux food up to the mouth, they have severe GORD. Nocturnal reflux and food coming up to the mouth, severe GORD. Sometimes the patient may complain of angina-like chest pain or the features suggestive of pulmonary or laryngeal symptoms. If dysphagia is present, if the patient is complaining of dysphagia, it is a sure shot sign that there may be a presence of stricture. But be careful, there is a differential diagnosis if a patient's suspected of having gastroesophageal reflux disease is presenting with dysphagia. The most important differential diagnosis is the motility disorders of esophagus. Later on we'll discuss about the motility disorders in detail, but please remember this fact. GORD is a very common disorder, and especially if unusual esophageal symptoms are there, and even after a series of investigation the diagnosis is not clear, we may suspect this GORD. Now, after discussing the clinical features, let's go to the diagnosis part of GORD. In most of the cases, most of the clinician and patients, I'm saying patient themselves, the diagnosis is assumed rather than proven. And in most of the cases, the treatment they are taking empirically. In GORD, investigation is required only when the patient is not responding to a proton pump inhibitor. Patient has taken the proton pump inhibitor for, let's say, 8 weeks and is still not responding. Investigate the patient. Or if the patient with features of GORD presenting to you with dysphagia, investigate the patient. During the diagnosis of GORD, the most important examination, one of the important examination is endoscopy with biopsy. And if on upper GI endoscopy, we can see the features suggestive of reflux esophagitis or some stricture or the presence of Barrett's esophagus, diagnosis is very much clear. Barrett's esophagus, you all know. Barrett's esophagus means normally the lining is squamous, the lower esophagus, and if that has been changed to columnar epithelium, that is known as Barrett's esophagus. Later on we'll discuss it in detail in the next interaction. Sometimes we cannot see the visible that inflammation of esophageal mucosa, that is not always seen during upper GI endoscopy. And what is the reason? That most of the patient and most of us, off and on, we are taking proton pump inhibitors. And these proton pump inhibitors, if we have taken for 8 weeks, they causes rapid healing of early mucosal lesions. Almost 90% of healing occurs during 8 weeks of treatment. Remember the two important facts here. Usually the correlation is poor between symptoms presented by the patient and the appearance of features during upper GI endoscopy. These cannot be correlated. Very poor correlation is there. But there is strong correlation between the deterioration of endoscopic appearances of esophageal lumen and mucosa and the duration of that esophageal acidification on pH testing. Means duration is more important, and it can be very strongly correlated with the presentation of endoscopic features. In patients with atypical or persistent symptoms, despite therapy, we have already given the proton pump inhibitors, but still the patient is complaining, more complaints while taking tea or coffee. Again, the classical triad, one of them may appear. Then in that case, esophageal manometry and 24-hour esophageal pH recording is indicated. These two investigations are indicated: esophageal manometry and 24-hour esophageal pH recording. Now remember, in this, the diagnostic aspect of GORD, this 24-hour pH recording, it's a gold standard. And TLOSRs, transient lower esophageal sphincter relaxations. These are the most important manometric findings in GORD. And during the management of GORD, the length and pressure of lower esophageal sphincter, they are also important. Before going for this pH recording, always ask the patient to stop the proton pump inhibitors if he or she is taking. And at least the PPIs they should be stopped 1 week before the esophageal pH recording. At least 1 week before. And sometimes even after we will have to wait for 2 to 3 weeks without proton pump inhibitors and then repeat the examination if any doubt is there. Now, manometry and pH recording. These two things are very essential and they must be done if the patient is being considered for anti-reflux surgery. In the next interaction, we'll go with this anti-reflux surgery. Now, main purpose of the test is basically is to objectively, in an objective manner, it's not the subjective test, in an objective manner, to quantify the extent of reflux disease. This is the main purpose of the test. And sometimes this is also used to rule out the diagnosis of achalasia. Now, in early stages of achalasia, chest pain is associated with intermittent swallowing problems and non-specific symptoms. In this scenario, we can easily misdiagnose this patient of having GORD. So, achalasia and GORD, there is always these two conditions are differential diagnosis in this scenario. How to differentiate a patient of GORD with achalasia? Now, patient with achalasia, they also have an abnormal pH study similar to the GORD. But the important thing is the pH tracing, the form of the pH trace is different from that of GORD. And there is slow undulations of pH in achalasia rather than rapid burst of reflux in GORD. And why there is slow undulation of pH? This pH changes in achalasia due to the fermentation of food residue that is present in a dilated esophagus. And another important thing is during manometry, if there is complete absence of peristalsis, it's a pathognomonic of achalasia, seen in achalasia. Next in diagnosis part is barium swallow and meal examination. These two investigation, the various forms of barium swallow, they give the best details of gastroesophageal anatomy. And this investigation is important if we are planning for surgery, especially the patient, if the patient is suffering from rolling or mixed hiatus hernias along with GORD. But if the patient is only having GORD, this is unimportant. In most of the patients, it is not required, this barium swallow, if patient is only having GORD. In Trendelenburg position, remember this thing, it's a very unphysiological position adopted during some operative procedures. In that case, it may stimulate reflux in those patients who do not have gastroesophageal reflux disease. One of the factors that may mimic the symptoms of GORD. Now, just to enumerate the complications of GORD, there are basically three complications: the esophageal stricture, the esophageal shortening, the Barrett's esophagus, that is columnar line lower esophagus is there. These three complications are very important in case of gastroesophageal reflux disease. Now, in today's interaction, we'll only go with the management of uncomplicated GORD and especially the medical part. The surgical part we'll discuss later on. Now the medical management, most of the patient, they self-medicate. And what are the drugs? The antacids, the antacid alginate preparations, and H2 receptor antagonists. And if these treatments are not going to help them, or if the clinical symptoms are severe and there is prolonged GORD, then only these patients, they come to us and they consult. In the medical management of GORD, these are the important points we must remember, and usually these points are neglected during the management of GORD. So please go through them very carefully. We must advise the patient to go for weight loss. Quit smoking. Stop. Avoid excessive consumption of alcohol, tea or coffee. Avoid the large meals, especially late at night. And if we can advise the patient to adopt the modest degree of head up tilt of the bed, it is very beneficial, and the effect is almost similar to taking an H2 receptor antagonist. The head up tilt of the bed, advise the patient to adopt it. At the same time, using additional pillows, they don't have any significant effect. As far as the medical management is concerned, the proton pump inhibitors, they are the most effective drug in the treatment of GORD. So effective that if a patient has started this drug, the patients are usually reluctant to stop taking them. Keep on taking proton pump inhibitors whenever it is required according to them. So during the medical management, as a doctor, give the adequate dose for 8 weeks. If you are giving omeprazole 20 milligram once a day, if you are giving pantoprazole, give 40 milligram once a day, and so on. And in 8 weeks, you will see there is a rapid improvement in symptoms. Within a few days, this improvement you can see, and more than 90% healing of mucosa occurs after 8 weeks. Of course, the patient will have to follow your instructions other than PPIs, what we have just discussed. Now in this management, there is a step down medical treatment approach is there. So after 8 weeks, the dose of PPI is reduced to that level which keeps the patient free of symptoms. And sometimes if patient is not having any symptom, even you can stop the PPI treatment after 8 weeks. Slowly, step down medical treatment is recommended. The failure is because most of the time the patients do not make major lifestyle changes and they prefer to remain on PPIs for long-term treatment. But in these type of patients during medical management, if PPIs are not working according to you and there is no adequate response on PPIs, then we can add an H2 receptor antagonist. Even if the patient is not responding, then the investigation is required. Investigate the patient, why he or she is not responding. PPI therapy, that is proton pump inhibitor therapy, is indicated especially in patients with features of reflux induced strictures, and these PPI, they have an advantage in prolonging the intervals between endoscopic dilatation of esophageal strictures. Remember, we have discussed in the previous lectures, first or second lectures, the thermal recanalization and dilatation of structures, the same endoscopic dilatation, the interval is being prolonged if you have advised the PPI therapy to the patient. After this PPI therapy, some endoscopic treatments are also available, and to augment the function of lower esophageal sphincter, three things are important. There are endoscopic suturing devices, and they can plicate the gastric mucosa just below the cardia, and in that manner we can accentuate the angle of S, and it is a sort of protective mechanism against GORD. The second endoscopic treatment that can be offered is radiofrequency ablation, and that is applied to at the level of sphincter. And sometimes the submucosal polymers can be injected through the upper GI endoscopy into the lower esophagus under endosonography guidance. These endoscopic treatments are indicated basically in patients with a small hiatus hernia with GORD, although the failure rates at 1 year is almost more than 50%. So sometimes useful, especially in patients with very small hiatus hernias there with GORD. Otherwise, in other patients, other options are more suitable. As far as the surgery is concerned, we'll discuss it in the next interaction, but the indications for surgery, it is reduced now due to the invention or the discovery of proton pump inhibitors, and there are limited anti-reflex operations. The limited number of anti-reflex operations are there, but nowadays, due to presence of minimal access surgery, the acceptability of procedures, they are improved now due to presence of minimal access surgery. So in this interaction we have discussed the medical management, and then in the next upcoming interaction we'll go with the surgical management of GORD. Any questions, any query, you can type in the comment box. We'll discuss them after finishing the esophagus part or in between. Thank you.